She's 18? The SEALs laughed. They laughed hard. A teenager with a sniper rifle in Ramadi. It had to be a joke. But nobody was laughing 30 minutes later when 25 terrorists opened fire from every rooftop, every window, every alley. RPGs screamed into American vehicles. 2 SEALs dropped in the first volley. Blood sprayed across the dust. The platoon was being ripped apart, pinned, surrounded, dying. Then one rifle spoke. One. Calm, steady, merciless. A terrorist's head snapped back. Then another. Then another. 25 shots. 25 kills. The girl they mocked that morning had just saved every last one of them. Subscribe now, follow her story to the very end, and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this legend reaches. Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale had buried 6 soldiers in 14 months. He remembered every name, every face, every letter he'd written to mothers who'd never hold their sons again. So when command told him a new sniper was being attached to his platoon in Ramadi, he didn't ask about qualifications. He didn't ask about the shooter's record. He asked one question. Is this person going to get my men killed? The voice on the other end of the satellite phone paused. Negative. This shooter has the highest marksman score in the last 12 years. 12 years, Hale repeated. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Fine. When do they arrive? Tomorrow, 0600. Hale, one more thing. What? Just keep an open mind. The line went dead. Hale stared at the phone. In his experience, when a commanding officer said, keep an open mind, it meant something was coming that would make you want to lose yours. He was right. The helicopter touched down at 0547, 13 minutes early. Hale stood with his arms crossed, flanked by 2 of his most experienced operators, Petty Officer First Class Danny Vasco and Chief Petty Officer Russ Tremblay. Both men had been through 4 deployments. Both had killed. Both had almost been killed. They were the kind of soldiers who didn't flinch at explosions, but could tell you the exact caliber of a round by the sound it made passing overhead. The rotor wash kicked up a wall of dust. A figure stepped out, small frame, slim shoulders, a rifle case slung across the back that looked almost too big for the body carrying it. Vasco leaned toward Hale. That's our sniper? Hale said nothing. The figure walked closer. Combat boots, standard issue. Fatigues that didn't quite fit right at the shoulders. A patrol cap pulled low. And when the cap came up, Hale saw it. A face that still had the softness of youth. Wide eyes. A jaw that hadn't fully hardened. A girl. Staff Sergeant Hale. Her voice was steady. No tremor. No hesitation. That's me. Corporal Riley Dawson, reporting as assigned. Hale looked at her for a long moment. Behind him, Vasco made a sound. Not quite a laugh, not quite a cough. Tremblay shifted his weight from one foot to the other. How old are you, Corporal? 18, Staff Sergeant. The silence that followed was louder than the helicopter. Vasco broke it. 18. She's 18. He turned to Tremblay. They're sending us a teenager. I can hear you, Riley said. Her eyes didn't leave Hale's. You were supposed to hear me, Vasco said. With all due respect, Corporal, this isn't a firing range. This is Ramadi. People die here. Experienced people. People who've been doing this for a decade. And you're what? Fresh out of training? I completed advanced sniper qualification 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. Vasco looked at the sky like he was asking God for patience. 6 weeks ago, I was pulling a bullet fragment out of Kowalski's thigh. 6 weeks ago, we lost Henderson at a checkpoint, and they send us someone who can't legally buy a beer. Riley didn't flinch. I didn't ask to be sent here, Petty Officer, but I'm here, and I can shoot. Everybody can shoot, kid. Not like me. The words hung in the air. Vasco opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Hale. Hale studied her. There was something in her eyes he recognized. Not arrogance, something else. Something colder. The look of a person who'd already decided who they were and didn't need your permission to be it. Get your gear, Hale said. Bunk assignment is inside. Third door on the left. Briefing at 0800. Don't be late. Riley nodded. She walked past them without another word. Tremblay waited until she was inside. Marcus, she's a child. She's a soldier. She's both, and that's the problem. Hale didn't answer. He watched the doors she disappeared through, and for reasons he couldn't explain, something tightened in his chest. Not fear, not anger, something closer to the feeling he got right before an IED detonated. That split second where your body knows what's coming before your mind does. Word spread fast. By noon, everyone in the platoon knew about the new sniper, and nobody was happy. Corporal Eddie Salcedo, the team's designated marksman, was the most vocal. He cornered Hale outside the operations center, his face tight with something between confusion and insult. They're replacing me? Nobody's replacing you, Salcedo. Then what's she doing here? She's an additional asset. Command wants Overwatch support for the next phase of operations. That's all. Salcedo's jaw worked. An additional asset. She weighs 120 pounds. She looks like she should be studying for a math test. And she's supposed to watch our backs in a kill zone? I don't make the assignments, but you accept them. Hale stepped closer, close enough that Salcedo could see the lines around his eyes, the gray creeping into his temples, the weight of every decision that had aged him 10 years in two. Listen to me carefully, Hale said, his voice low. I have buried 6 men from this platoon. 6. I write letters to their families. I see their faces when I close my eyes. So when I tell you that I will not let anyone put my people at risk, you will believe me. If she can't perform, she's gone. But she gets the same chance everyone else got. Are we clear? Salcedo held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Clear, Staff Sergeant. He walked away, but the damage was already done. The platoon had made up its mind. Riley Dawson was a liability, a joke, a political stunt sent to a war zone to check a box on someone's spreadsheet. Nobody said it to her face. They didn't have to. She could feel it in the way conversations stopped when she entered a room, in the way nobody sat next to her at meals, in the way Vasco called her kid like it was her rank. She ate alone that first night, her tray on a table in the corner of the mess hall, her back to the wall, her eyes scanning the room the way a sniper scans a horizon, methodical, patient, missing nothing. Tremblay noticed. He always noticed things. It was what made him dangerous in the field and decent everywhere else. He sat down across from her without asking. Chief Petty Officer Tremblay, he said, extending a hand. She took it. Corporal Dawson. I know who you are. Everyone does. I noticed. Give them time. They've lost people. They're scared. Not of you, of losing more. Riley looked at him. I'm not here to make friends, Chief. Good, because you won't. Not at first. But you might keep some of them alive. And in this place, that counts for more. She almost smiled. Almost. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. Eat your food. Tomorrow's going to be long. The briefing room was standing room only. 23 operators packed into a space built for 15. Hale stood at the front, a satellite map pinned to the wall behind him. Red circles marked hostile positions. Blue arrows marked patrol routes. Black X's marked the places where Americans had died. There were a lot of black X's. Listen up, Hale said. Intelligence reports indicate a significant enemy presence has established fortified positions in the Al-Jara district. At least 30 confirmed hostiles, possibly more. They've been hitting our patrols for 3 weeks. We've lost 2 vehicles and 4 men. The room was silent. Tomorrow at 0430, we move in. 2 teams. Alpha enters from the north. Bravo flanks from the east. Our objective is to clear a 4-block area and establish a forward operating position. He pointed to a building on the map. Tall, central, overlooking every major intersection in the target zone. This is Building 7, 12 stories, best vantage point in the district. Our sniper team will position here to provide overwatch for both elements. Eyes shifted to Riley. She sat in the back row, her face unreadable. Vasco raised his hand. Staff Sergeant, who's on the sniper team? Corporal Dawson as primary shooter, Salcedo as spotter. The room erupted. You're kidding me! Salcedo's spotting for her? She hasn't fired a single round in theater. Enough. Hale's voice cut through the noise like a blade. This is not a discussion. Dawson has the highest qualification score command has seen in over a decade. She earned this position. If any of you have a problem with that, you can take it up with me after the briefing. Privately. Now sit down and pay attention, because tomorrow, some of those red circles on this map are going to try to kill you. And the person in this room most likely to stop that from happening is the one you're all complaining about. Silence. Riley didn't move, didn't react, but under the table her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the effort of holding everything in. Every doubt, every insult, every sideways glance, she swallowed them all and locked them in a place deep inside her chest where they couldn't touch her aim. After the briefing, Salcedo found her in the equipment room. She was checking her rifle, a custom M110 semi-automatic sniper system, the barrel worn smooth from thousands of rounds. She handled it with the kind of familiarity most people reserve for their own hands. Look, Salcedo said, standing in the doorway. I don't like this. I know. I've been in this unit for 3 years. I've earned my position. I know that too. So why should I trust you? Riley didn't look up from her rifle. Her fingers moved with precision, checking the bolt, the scope alignment, the trigger pull. You shouldn't, she said quietly. That caught him off guard. What? You shouldn't trust me. Not yet. Trust is earned. I haven't earned anything here. She looked up at him now, and her eyes were clear and hard and honest. But tomorrow, when we're in that building and things go sideways, and they will go sideways, I need you to do one thing. What's that? Call the targets. That's your job. Call them, and I'll put them down. You don't have to like me. You don't have to respect me, but you have to do your job, and I have to do mine. That's how we keep those men alive. Salcedo stared at her. For the first time since she'd arrived, something shifted in his expression. Not respect, not yet, but the beginning of it. The crack in the wall that respect eventually walks through. 0430, he said. I'll be ready. He left without another word. 3:30 in the morning. The base was quiet except for the sound of boots and gear being checked and double-checked and checked again. Riley sat on her bunk, her rifle case on the floor beside her, her hands still. She reached into the breast pocket of her fatigues and pulled out a photograph, creased at the corners, worn thin from being held too many times. A man in uniform, broad shoulders, a smile that could light up a room and break your heart at the same time. Her father, Staff Sergeant Thomas Dawson, killed in action, Kandahar Province. She was 13 years old when the officers came to the door. She remembered her mother's scream. She remembered the sound of her own breathing, loud and fast and wrong, like her lungs didn't know how to work anymore. She remembered standing at the funeral, watching the flag being folded into a triangle, and thinking one thought over and over like a heartbeat. I'm going to finish what he started. 5 years later, she was here. She put the photograph back, zipped the pocket shut, stood up. Tremblay was waiting outside her door. He didn't say anything about the photograph. He didn't need to. He'd seen soldiers carry those before. Small pieces of the dead, tucked close to the heart like prayers. You good? He asked. I'm good. Riley. He used her first name for the first and only time. Whatever happens out there, you come back. You hear me? You come back. She looked at him, and for just a moment, the mask slipped. Behind it was an 18-year-old girl who was terrified and brave and determined and alone, and who carried a dead man's dream on her shoulders like a second rifle. "I'll come back," she said. 0430. The convoy rolled out. Riley sat in the back of the second vehicle, her rifle between her knees, her eyes forward. Around her, the platoon was quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when men are counting their own heartbeats and wondering if they'll still be counting them 12 hours from now. Vasco sat across from her. He hadn't spoken to her since the first day. Now he leaned forward. "Hey, kid." She looked at him. "If things get bad up there, you get on that radio and you call for extract. Don't play hero. Don't try to prove anything. Just stay alive. That's your only job. My job is to protect this platoon. Your job is to stay alive so you can protect this platoon. There's a difference. Learn it." The vehicle hit a bump. Everyone swayed. Nobody spoke. Then from the front seat, the driver, a 22-year-old from Alabama named Briggs, said, "So is it true you hit 47 out of 47 at the qualification range?" Riley paused. 48 out of 48. Briggs whistled. "Dang. Doesn't mean anything until it's real," Vasco said. "It's about to be real," Riley answered. And she was right. The convoy stopped 4 blocks from the target zone. Both teams dismounted. Alpha moved north. Bravo moved east. Riley and Salcedo split off toward Building 7 with a 4-man security escort. The streets were empty. That was the first bad sign. In Ramadi, empty streets meant someone had warned the civilians. And if the civilians were gone, it meant the fighters knew they were coming. Hale's voice crackled through the radio. "All units be advised. Streets are cold. High probability of enemy awareness. Maintain cover discipline and stay sharp." Riley climbed. 20 stories with 50 pounds of gear. Her legs burned. Her lungs burned. But she climbed without stopping, without slowing, without making a sound. Salcedo was behind her, breathing hard, watching her with something that might have been irritation or might have been admiration. They reached the roof. Riley went to the eastern edge, dropped prone, extended the bipod on her rifle, and pressed her eye to the scope. The city spread out beneath her like a chessboard. Streets, alleys, rooftops, doorways, each one a potential firing position, each one a potential grave. "I'm set," she said into the radio. "Copy," Hale responded. "Alpha team is in position. Bravo is 90 seconds out. Overwatch, you are cleared hot." Cleared hot. 2 words that meant she was authorized to kill. Riley exhaled slowly. Her heartbeat dropped. Her vision narrowed. The world shrank to the circle of her scope, and inside that circle, everything became simple. Target or not target, threat or not threat, life or death. "Salcedo," she whispered, "start calling." He pressed the spotting scope to his eye, scanned, and then his breath caught. "Contact, rooftop, 2 o'clock, 300 meters, 2 armed males, RPG. Riley shifted, found them. 2 men crouching behind a low wall, one holding a rocket-propelled grenade launcher aimed directly at the street where Alpha Team was about to turn the corner. Her finger found the trigger. "If they fire that RPG," Salcedo said, his voice tight, "Alpha Team is gone." Riley's breathing stopped. Her body became perfectly still. The crosshair settled on the chest of the man holding the RPG. She squeezed. The rifle kicked. The round crossed 300 meters in less than a second. The man dropped. The RPG clattered to the rooftop. The second man spun, confused, reaching for the weapon. Riley chambered another round. Fired. He dropped beside the first. 2 shots, 2 kills. 4 seconds. The radio exploded. "Overwatch, report! We heard shots!" Riley keyed her mic. Her voice was flat, controlled, like she was reading a weather report. 2 hostiles eliminated. Rooftop position, Sector 2. RPG neutralized. Alpha Team, you are clear to proceed. Silence on the radio. Then Hale's voice, quiet and strange. Copy that, Overwatch. Good shooting. Salcedo pulled back from his scope and looked at her. Really looked at her. This girl, this kid, had just saved 6 lives with 2 bullets, and her hands weren't even shaking. Dawson, he said. Yeah? Keep shooting like that. For the first time since she'd arrived, Riley Dawson smiled. And then the world exploded. The first IED detonated on the street below. A massive blast that sent a column of smoke and debris spiraling into the air. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Muzzle flashes lit up windows, rooftops, alleyways. The radio became a wall of voices screaming over each other. Contact south! Contact south! Bravo is pinned down. We need RPG! RPG incoming! Man down! We have a man down! Salcedo's face went white. This is an ambush. They were waiting for us. Riley didn't respond. She was already scanning. Her scope swept the cityscape. Fast, methodical, deadly. Salcedo, focus, call targets. He swallowed hard, pressed his eye to the scope, and started calling. Window, 11 o'clock, 400 meters. Shooter. Riley fired. The window went dark. Doorway, 9 o'clock, 250. 2 fighters moving to flank Bravo. She adjusted, fired, chambered, fired. Both dropped. Rooftop, 1 o'clock, 500 meters. Machine gun position. She shifted, found it. A man behind a mounted weapon, pouring rounds down into the street where American soldiers were scrambling for cover. 500 meters. Wind from the east. She calculated in a fraction of a second. The math that lived in her bones now. The equations that had become instinct. She fired. The machine gun went silent. Hit, Salcedo confirmed. His voice was shaking now. Not from fear, from awe. Direct hit. 500 meters. Through the opening of the position. On the ground, Hale heard the machine gun stop. He pressed himself against a wall, blood running from a cut above his eye, and keyed his radio. Overwatch, status. Riley's voice came back, steady as stone. I'm working, Staff Sergeant. Stay low. And she kept working. For the next 47 minutes, Riley Dawson became something that none of them, not Hale, not Vasco, not Salcedo, not any of the hardened, combat-tested operators in that platoon, had ever seen before. She fired with a precision that bordered on mechanical and a calm that bordered on inhuman. Every shot found its target. Every target fell. Salcedo called them as fast as he could find them, and she put them down faster than he could speak. Alley, 3 o'clock. Dead. Second floor, 10 o'clock. Dead. Moving across the road, 12 o'clock. Dead. 25 confirmed kills. 25 human beings who had woken up that morning intending to kill Americans, and who were now lying in the streets and on the rooftops and in the doorways of Aljara, ended by a girl who couldn't legally buy a drink. When the last shot echoed away and the streets finally went quiet, Salcedo set down his scope. His hands were trembling. He looked at Riley. She was still in position, still scanning, still ready. Dawson, he said, it's over. She didn't move for a long moment. Then slowly she pulled back from the scope. Her eyes were wet, not from tears, from not blinking for 47 minutes. She sat up, looked at her hands. They were perfectly still, and then they started shaking. Not a little, not a tremor, a violent whole-body shake that started in her fingers and climbed up her arms and into her chest until her teeth were chattering and she couldn't hold her rifle anymore, and it clattered to the concrete beside her. Salcedo caught her shoulders. Hey, look at me! Dawson, look at me! She looked at him, and behind the iron, behind the steel, behind the impossible calm that had carried her through 47 minutes of hell, he saw her. The girl, the 18-year-old girl who had just killed 25 people and saved a platoon, and who was now sitting on a rooftop in a city that smelled like smoke and blood, shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. You did it, Salcedo said. You hear me? You did it. They're alive because of you. Riley's mouth opened. No sound came out. She tried again. I promised, she whispered. I promised I'd come back. Salcedo didn't understand. Not then, not yet. But he held her shoulders and he didn't let go. And somewhere 12 stories below, Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale looked up at Building 7 and said a word he hadn't said in 14 months. Thank God. And on the roof, still shaking, still breaking, still holding herself together with nothing but willpower and a dead father's photograph pressed against her heart, Riley Dawson closed her eyes. She was 18 years old, and nothing would ever be the same again. The shaking lasted 9 minutes. Salcedo counted every one of them because he didn't know what else to do. He kept his hands on her shoulders and he kept talking, not about the kills, not about the mission, just about nothing. His mom's cooking, his dog back in San Diego, the truck he was going to buy when he got home. Anything, everything, words to fill the silence where the gunfire used to be. Riley stopped shaking at the 9-minute mark. She took one long breath, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and picked up her rifle. Her fingers wrapped around it like they were greeting an old friend. I'm good, she said. You don't have to be good right now. I'm good, Salcedo. He looked at her eyes. They were dry, clear. Whatever had broken open inside her had sealed itself shut again, and the person staring back at him was the same person who dropped 25 fighters in 47 minutes without missing once. He didn't know if that was strength or something else. Something that scared him more than the ambush had. Okay, he said, then let's get off this roof. They descended 12 flights in silence. When they reached the ground floor, the security escort was waiting. 4 men who'd heard every shot through the radio. 4 men who looked at Riley the way you look at something you don't understand and aren't sure you want to. Specialist Briggs was the first to speak. 25? Riley walked past him without answering. Briggs looked at Salcedo. Is that confirmed? 25? I called every one of them, Salcedo said. She didn't miss. Not once. Briggs let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in his chest for an hour. Jesus. They moved through the streets toward the rally point. The air tasted like burning metal and concrete dust. Riley walked in the center of the formation, her rifle across her chest, her eyes still scanning. Always scanning. Even now. Even after. Hale was waiting at the rally point. His face was caked with dust and dried blood from the cut above his eye. He stood with his arms at his sides, watching her approach. When she stopped in front of him, neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Hale said, Corporal Dawson, Staff Sergeant, outstanding work. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. He wanted to say more. She could see it. The words were right there, pushing against his teeth. But Marcus Hale was not a man who said things he hadn't thought through. So he swallowed them and nodded once and turned away. Vasco was leaning against the wall behind him. The same Vasco who'd called her kid. The same Vasco who'd told her this wasn't a firing range. He pushed off the wall and walked toward her, and the platoon watched because everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Vasco stopped 2 feet in front of her. He was a full head taller, broader, older. He was in the position that RPG was ago. He was in the position that RPG was aimed at this morning. Same sector, same angle. If you hadn't taken those 2 out on the rooftop, it would have happened again. Same spot, same way. He stopped. His throat moved. So yeah, I owe you an apology, and I owe you more than that. Riley looked at him, and something passed between them that wasn't forgiveness, because there was nothing to forgive. It was recognition. One soldier seeing another soldier for the first time. You don't owe me anything, Riley said. Just stay alive. That's enough. Vasco held out his hand. She took it. He squeezed once, hard. Then he let go and walked away, and nobody in the platoon called her kid again. The debrief happened at 13:40. 23 operators packed into the same room, same map on the wall, but now the red circles had X's through them. Riley's X's. 25 of them. Hale stood at the front. He looked different. The weight he'd carried into this room 12 hours ago had shifted. Not lifted, it never lifts, but shifted. Casualty report, he said. 2 wounded. Vega took shrapnel in the left arm. Morrison has a concussion from the IED blast. Both stable, both expected to make full recovery. He paused. No KIA. The room exhaled. 23 men breathing out at the same time. The sound of survival. 0 killed in action, Hale repeated. In an ambush designed to wipe out this platoon, we lost nobody. Intelligence estimates the enemy force at 30 to 35 fighters. 25 were neutralized by our Overwatch element. He didn't say her name. He didn't need to. Every eye in the room was already on her. Remaining hostiles withdrew. The district is secured. Forward operating position is established. This mission is a success. Salcedo raised his hand. Staff Sergeant, for the record, Corporal Dawson's shooting today was the most accurate sustained fire I have ever witnessed in 12 years of service. I want that in the report. It's already in the report, Hale said. Riley sat in the back row, same seat as yesterday, but the space around her had changed. Yesterday, the empty chairs beside her were a wall. Today, Briggs sat to her left. Another operator, Corporal Nakamura, sat to her right. Small movements, small choices. But in a platoon, small choices are everything. After the debrief, Tremblay found her in the equipment room. She was cleaning her rifle. The same ritual, the same precision. Bolt, scope, trigger, barrel. Every part inspected, every part maintained, every part loved. You kept your promise, Tremblay said from the doorway. She didn't look up. I told you I would. How are you holding up? And I'm not asking for a soldier answer. I'm asking for a real one. Her hands stopped. She stared at the disassembled rifle in front of her. Pieces of metal that, when assembled, could end a life from half a mile away. Pieces of metal that had ended 25 lives today. I keep seeing their faces, she said quietly, through the scope, right before. They don't know. They don't know it's coming. And then it comes, and their face changes, and then it doesn't change anymore because there's nothing left to change. Tremblay was quiet. He'd heard this before, from other snipers, from himself in the early years. The scope makes it personal. You see their eyes, you see them breathing, and then you take that away. That doesn't go away, he said. I know. But it's the reason you're human and not a machine. The day you stop seeing their faces is the day you need to worry. Riley reassembled the rifle. Every piece clicked into place with the certainty of something designed to do exactly one thing. She looked up at Tremblay. My father saw their faces too. He told my mom once, in a letter. He said he saw every one of them. He said he carried them. Your father was a good soldier. My father was a good man. Those aren't always the same thing. Tremblay leaned against the doorframe. No, they're not, but you might be both. He left. Riley finished cleaning her rifle. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph. Her father's face smiled up at her from a time before everything went wrong. She pressed her thumb against it. 25, Dad, she whispered. 25, and I brought everyone home. The photograph didn't answer. It never did. But she kept talking to it anyway, because some conversations don't need a response to be real. By 1800, the story had spread beyond the platoon. The battalion commander, Colonel Francis Whitmore, called Hale on a secure line. Is it true? Whitmore asked. No preamble, no small talk. Whitmore didn't do small talk. Confirmed, sir. 25 enemy KIA, single shooter, 47 minutes. The shooter is 18 years old. Correct, sir. And female. Correct, sir. A long pause. Hale could hear Whitmore breathing on the other end. Processing. calculating. Whitmore was a political animal, brilliant tactically, but always aware of the camera, always conscious of the narrative. "This is going to be a story," Whitmore said. "It already is, sir. I mean a big story. Media, congressional, the kind that takes on a life of its own. I need to know, is she stable?" Hale thought about the shaking on the rooftop. 9 minutes of violent trembling before she pulled herself back together with nothing but willpower. He thought about her eating alone in the mess hall. He thought about the photograph she carried over her heart. "She's a soldier, sir." "That's not what I asked. She's as stable as anyone who just killed 25 people in under an hour. Which is to say, I don't know, but she held it together when it mattered, and she saved this platoon." "I'm coming to your position tomorrow. I want to meet her." "Understood, sir. And Hale, keep her close. She's valuable." The word hit Hale like a slap. Valuable. Not brave, not remarkable. Valuable. Like she was an asset, a weapon with legs. "She's a person, sir." "I know what she is. I also know what she's worth." "Whitmore out." The line went dead. Hale set down the phone and stared at the wall. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a warning bell rang. The kind that goes off when you realize the danger isn't just outside the wire. It's inside it too. At 2100, most of the platoon was in the rec area. Someone had rigged a laptop to a speaker and was playing music too loud for the space. Card games, conversations, the forced relaxation of men who were still running on adrenaline and wouldn't sleep for hours. Riley wasn't there. She was on the roof of the barracks, her legs dangling over the edge, looking at a sky she couldn't really see through the haze of smoke and dust. Footsteps behind her. She didn't reach for her weapon. She knew the sound of those boots. "You should be sleeping," Hale said, sitting down beside her. "So should you." "I don't sleep much anymore. Occupational hazard." She almost laughed. "Yeah." They sat in silence for a minute, maybe two. The kind of silence that isn't empty. It's full of everything neither person is saying. "Can I ask you something personal?" Hale said. "Depends." "Why are you here? The real reason, not the answer you give at briefings." Riley's jaw tightened. She pulled her knees up to her chest. "You read my file." "I read your file. Staff Sergeant Thomas Dawson, killed in action 2009, your father. Then you know why I'm here." "I know the fact. I don't know the feeling." She turned to look at him. In the dim light, her face was half shadow. "When my dad died, everyone told me the same thing. They said, he died a hero. Like that was supposed to make it better. Like the word hero fills the chair at Thanksgiving. Like it reads bedtime stories. Like it walks you down the aisle." Her voice hardened. "It doesn't. Hero is a word people use to stop feeling guilty about sending someone to die." Hale said nothing, because she was right. "I'm here because I made a decision the day they buried him. I decided I would never be the one left behind again. I would never stand at another funeral and feel helpless. If someone in my family was going to fight, it was going to be me. And I was going to be so good at it that nobody around me would ever die." She stopped. Her voice dropped. "That's an impossible promise. I know that. But I made it anyway. You kept it today. Today, what about tomorrow? What about next week? What about the mission after that?" She shook her head. "One perfect day doesn't erase what's coming. It just raises the stakes." Hale looked at her. 18 years old. Carrying a grief that would crush most adults. Carrying a purpose that burned so hot it kept the grief from killing her, but would eventually burn her too if someone didn't help her control it. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Who?" "Me. 20 years ago. Same fire, same fury, same belief that if you were just good enough, you could keep everyone alive." "What happened?" "I learned I couldn't, and it nearly destroyed me." He let that sit. "Don't let it destroy you, Dawson. You're too good for that." She didn't respond. Angle you didn't cover. And no amount of angle you didn't cover, and no amount of skill can stop it. They sat on that roof for another 20 minutes, two soldiers separated by 20 years and connected by something that didn't have a name. And when they finally went inside, neither of them slept. At 0500 the next morning, Colonel Whitmore arrived. He came with a photographer, a public affairs officer, and a smile that Hale didn't trust. "Where is she?" Whitmore asked, stepping out of the vehicle like he was arriving at a press conference instead of a forward operating position in one of the most dangerous cities on earth. "Corporal Dawson is in the armory, sir." "Bring her to me," Hale sent trembly. 5 minutes later, Riley appeared. She'd cleaned up, uniform squared away, hair pulled tight. She stood at attention in front of the colonel with the rigid discipline of someone who'd been trained to respect rank, even when rank didn't deserve it. "At ease, Corporal." Whitmore circled her like he was inspecting a vehicle. "So you're the one everyone's talking about." "I did my job, sir." "You did more than your job. You did something extraordinary. 25 confirmed kills in a single engagement. At 18 years old, do you understand what that means? It means 25 people are dead, sir." Whitmore's smile flickered. That wasn't the answer he wanted. He wanted gratitude. He wanted awe. He wanted a story he could package and present. The teenage girl who saved the platoon, proof that the military's new recruitment initiatives were working, proof that command's decisions were brilliant. "It means you're a hero, Corporal. And heroes have a responsibility. My responsibility is to this platoon, sir. Your responsibility is to your country, and your country needs to know what you did." Hale stepped forward. "Sir, with all due respect, Corporal Dawson has been in theater for less than 48 hours. She's been through a significant engagement. Maybe we should give her time before..." "Before what, Staff Sergeant? Before the story goes cold? Before someone else fills the narrative?" Whitmore turned back to Riley. "I want you to do an interview. Military media. Controlled environment. Nothing public yet. Just the story. Your story." Riley looked at Hale. Just a flicker of her eyes. But Hale saw it. The question she couldn't ask in front of a colonel. "What do I do?" Hale gave the smallest shake of his head. Riley turned back to Whitmore. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted. I'm not a story. I'm a sniper. I was sent here to protect American lives. And yesterday I did that. If you want to write a report, write a report. But I won't sit in front of a camera and talk about killing people like it's something to celebrate." The silence that followed was nuclear. Whitmore's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, anger, and then something careful and controlled that was worse than both. "I see," he said. "Staff Sergeant Hale, a word. Privately." They stepped away. When they were out of earshot, Whitmore dropped the smile entirely. "Control her. She's not a weapon to be controlled, sir. She is exactly a weapon to be controlled. She's the most effective combat asset I've seen in this theater in 2 years. And she just told a colonel to go to hell in front of 5 witnesses. I need her compliant. I need her cooperative, and I need her on camera. She's 18, sir. She just killed 25 people. Give her a week. You have 3 days. After that, I'm sending the media team whether she's ready or not." Whitmore left the same way he arrived, fast, loud, and leaving damage in his wake. Hale walked back to where Riley was standing. She hadn't moved. Tremblay stood nearby, his face unreadable. 3 days, Hale said. For what? Before they come back with cameras. Riley's jaw set. That look again, the one Hale had seen the first day. Not defiance, certainty. I didn't come here to be famous. I know. I came here to fight. I know that too. Then let me fight. Hale looked at her for a long time. This girl who could kill with terrifying precision, and who carried her dead father's photograph like a prayer, and who had just stared down a colonel without blinking. This girl who was the most dangerous person in his platoon, and also the most vulnerable. Intel just came in, he said. There's a high-value target operating 2 kilometers north. A bomb maker. He's responsible for the IEDs that killed 3 of our soldiers last month. Riley's eyes changed. The softness left. The calculation entered. When do we move? Tomorrow, 0300, and I want you on Overwatch again. Copy that. She turned and walked toward the armory. Hale watched her go. Tremblay appeared at his shoulder. You're sending her back out, Tremblay said. It wasn't a question. She's the best shooter I've ever seen. She's also a teenager who hasn't processed what happened yesterday. None of us have processed what happened yesterday, Russ. That's the job. You process it later, if there is a later. Tremblay shook his head slowly. This is going to break her, Marcus. Or it's going to make her. Those are the same thing. Hale didn't answer. Because Tremblay was right, and they both knew it. The thing that makes you and the thing that breaks you are the same thing. The only difference is which one wins. At 0300 the next morning, the platoon moved out again. Riley climbed into the vehicle. Same seat, same position. Rifle between her knees, eyes forward. But this time Vasco sat beside her, and across from her, Salcedo, and behind her, Briggs and Nakamura. Not because they were assigned those seats, because they chose them. The vehicle rolled into the darkness, and Riley Dawson rode toward her second mission with 25 ghosts in her scope and a dead man's promise burning in her chest. And nobody in that vehicle, not one single person, doubted her anymore. What they should have doubted was what was waiting for them in the dark. The convoy hit the first checkpoint at 0317. No contact, no movement, just empty streets and the kind of silence that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Riley felt it, that prickling sensation along her spine. The same feeling she'd had before the ambush in Al Jarrah, that animal instinct that lived beneath training and logic and everything the military had taught her. Something was wrong. Salcedo, she whispered. He was beside her in the vehicle, his spotting scope case across his lap. Yeah? You feel that? Feel what? Exactly. He understood. No dogs barking, no generators humming, no lights in windows. A neighborhood that should have had some signs of life, even at 3 in the morning, was holding its breath. Salcedo keyed his radio. Overwatch to Alpha Lead. Streets are dead quiet. Feels wrong. Hale's voice came back immediately. Copy, Overwatch. We're aware. Stay sharp. Proceed to Overwatch position. Building designated Falcon. 8 stories. Northeast corner of the target zone. The convoy split. Alpha and Bravo elements continued toward the bomb maker's suspected compound. Riley's team, Salcedo, Briggs, and 2 operators named Doyle and Fuentes, broke off toward building Falcon. They dismounted 3 blocks out and moved on foot. Riley took point. Nobody argued. Nobody questioned it. 24 hours ago, they would have put her in the middle of the formation like cargo to be protected. Now she walked in front and they followed. Building Falcon was a gutted residential tower. No doors on the ground floor. Stairwell intact but littered with debris. Riley moved through it like water. Fluid, silent, fast. 8 floors in 4 minutes. She hit the roof at 0331 and was in position by 0332. Prone, bipod extended, scope pressed to her eye. The compound was 600 meters to the southwest, a cluster of low buildings surrounded by a wall. I'm set, she radioed. Copy, Overwatch. Alpha is 3 minutes from breach point. Bravo is flanking south. Give me eyes on that compound. Riley scanned. The compound was dark, too dark. She adjusted the magnification on her scope and swept every visible window, every doorway, every inch of wall. Salcedo, north wall, do you see that? He pressed his spotting scope to his eye and found the north wall. What am I looking at? 3rd window from the left, ground floor. It's bricked up, but the mortar is fresh. So they renovated, so what? All the other windows are open. Why brick up one, unless you're hiding what's behind it? Salcedo looked again. She was right. Every other window in the compound was dark, but open. One window had been sealed shut with new bricks. Someone had closed it recently. Someone who didn't want anyone looking in or looking out. Alpha lead, Riley radioed. Overwatch has a possible fortified position. North wall, ground floor, third window. Fresh masonry. Recommend caution on north approach. Hale's voice came back tight. Copy. Alpha will adjust. Approaching from east side. At 0336, Alpha team reached the breach point. 6 operators stacked on the east wall. Hale was third in the stack. Riley watched through her scope as the point man raised 3 fingers. 2. 1. They blew the door. Flashbang in. Alpha team flooded the building. Silence for 4 seconds. Then Hale's voice confused. Building is empty. No occupants. No furniture. Nothing. Riley's stomach dropped. Empty. The intel said the bomb maker was here. The intel said this compound was active. But it was empty. Staff Sergeant, she said, and her voice had an edge now. A blade hidden in the calm. Get your men out of there. What? Why? It's a setup. The building is empty because they want you inside it. Get out now. Hale hesitated for 1 second. 1 second that almost cost everything. Then his training overrode his doubt and he shouted the order. All units, evacuate the building. Move, move, move. Alpha team poured out of the east door. They were 12 steps from the building when Riley saw it. A flash of light from the bricked-up window. Not a muzzle flash, something smaller. A detonator. Down, she screamed into the radio. The explosion blew the north wall outward. Concrete and rebar in a fireball that turned the night orange. The blast wave knocked 3 operators off their feet. Dust and debris filled the air. Alpha lead, report. Riley's voice cut through the chaos. Hale, report. Static. 5 seconds of static that lasted a lifetime. Then Hale's voice, coughing, ragged. Alpha team is up. All personnel accounted for. Minor injuries, we're moving to cover. Riley exhaled. Her fingers were white on the rifle. If she hadn't seen the bricked window, if Hale had waited 2 more seconds, if any single thing had been different, Alpha team would be buried in that rubble. Overwatch, be advised, Hale said between coughs. We have secondary explosions inside the compound. This whole area is rigged. The bomb maker didn't just live here. He turned the entire compound into a weapon. I've got movement, Salcedo said suddenly. His voice changed, sharp, urgent. Multiple contacts, south side, coming out of the buildings across the street. 8, 10, no more, 15 plus armed fighters. They're moving toward Alpha's position. Riley swung her rifle south. Found them. Men with rifles pouring out of doorways like roaches from a drain. They've been hiding in the surrounding buildings, waiting for the explosion, waiting for the chaos, waiting to finish off whoever survived. Bravo team, where are you? Hale shouted into the radio. Bravo is pinned on the south road. We walked into a secondary ambush. Heavy fire from elevated positions. We cannot assist. Both teams trapped. Alpha exposed after the explosion. Bravo pinned down 2 blocks away. And between them, a small army of fighters closing in for the kill. Riley's mind went cold. Not numb, cold. The kind of cold that strips everything unnecessary away and leaves only the math. Distance, wind, elevation, targets. Salcedo, call them. Dawson, there's at least 20 of them. We're 600 meters out. If they figure out where we are, then I'd better work fast. Call them. Salcedo swallowed. He put his eye to the scope. Lead fighter, 610 meters, moving east toward Alpha. He's carrying something. It's a vest. He's got a suicide vest. Riley found him. A man running with one hand pressed to his chest, holding something in place. Running straight toward where Hale's team was taking cover. She fired. The man's legs buckled and he pitched forward, hitting the ground face first. The vest detonated on impact. The explosion blew a crater in the road 15 meters from the nearest American soldier. "Mother of God," Briggs whispered from behind her. "If he'd reached them—" "He didn't," Riley said. "Next target. 2 fighters, 590 meters, moving as a pair. Rifles up." She fired twice. Both dropped. 3 more, 570, spreading out. They're trying to flank. 3 shots, 3 bodies. Salcedo's voice was running like a metronome now, steady and fast, and Riley matched his rhythm with her trigger finger. Call, shoot. Call, shoot. The bodies piled up on the street below, and the fighters who were still alive started to realize something was wrong. Their men were falling, but they couldn't hear where the shots were coming from. 600 meters is a long way. The sound of the rifle reached them after the bullet did. They were dying before they heard the gun. At 03:49, 7 minutes into the engagement, one of the fighters figured it out. He stopped in the middle of the road, looked north, and pointed directly at Building Falcon. "We're spotted," Salcedo said. "Keep calling." "Dawson, they know where we are." "They're going to." "Keep calling." He called. She shot. The man who'd pointed at their building dropped with a round through his chest. But the damage was done. 3 fighters broke from the main group and started running toward Building Falcon. Not to attack from the ground, they disappeared into a building 200 meters to the west. A tall building, taller than Falcon. "They're going for elevation," Salcedo said. "They're going to get above us." Riley calculated. If those fighters reached the roof of that building, they'd have a clear line of fire down into her position. She'd be a target instead of the shooter. And without Overwatch, both Alpha and Bravo teams would be exposed. "How long until they reach that rooftop?" she asked. "Building's 10 stories. With gear? 4 minutes, maybe 3. Then I have 3 minutes to end this." She turned back to the main engagement. 12 fighters still moving on the ground. 12 targets, 3 minutes. She'd have to shoot faster than she'd ever shot in her life. "Salcedo, don't stop talking." He didn't. He called targets in a continuous stream, his voice blending into a single, unbroken line of coordinates and distances and directions. And Riley fired and cycled and fired and cycled, and the rifle grew hot in her hands, and the spent casings piled up beside her like brass confetti. At 03:51, she dropped 8 more. 4 left on the ground, but the clock was running out. "Dawson, those 3 fighters, they're on the 8th floor. Maybe 90 seconds until they're on the roof. 4 targets left on the ground. Forget the ground. If they get above us, we're dead. I can do both." "You can't do both." She fired. One of the 4 ground fighters spun and fell. 3 left. "Dawson!" She shifted her rifle, found the tall building to the west, scanned the stairwell windows. There, a shadow passing the 9th floor window, moving fast. She tracked it. The shadow passed the 10th floor window. She fired through the glass. The shadow dropped, back to the ground. 3 fighters had taken cover behind a vehicle. She couldn't see bodies, only feet visible beneath the chassis. She adjusted her aim. "You can't make that shot," Salcedo said. "You're shooting at feet under a car at 600 meters. She fired. A man screamed and rolled out from behind the vehicle, clutching his ankle. She fired again. He stopped screaming. 2 on the roof, Salcedo said, his voice rising. "I can see them. They're setting up. They've got a machine gun. Dawson, they have a machine gun pointed at us." Riley swung back to the tall building. 2 men on the rooftop, one lying prone behind a mounted weapon, the other feeding the ammunition belt. 640 meters. Wind had shifted. She had 1 shot before they opened fire. 1. She breathed. The world shrank. Her heartbeat slowed to a crawl. She could feel the blood in her veins, the weight of the rifle, the texture of the trigger against her finger. The machine gunner's hand moved to the charging handle. Riley fired. The round crossed 640 meters. The machine gunner's head snapped back. The second man froze, staring at the body beside him. He reached for the weapon. Riley chambered another round and fired in the same breath. The second man fell across the first. "Hits confirmed," Salcedo breathed. Both down, machine gun neutralized. On the ground below, the last two fighters saw their rooftop support collapse. They broke, turned, started running south, away from the compound, away from the buildings, away from the invisible angel of death that had torn their entire assault force apart. Riley tracked the first runner. Her finger rested on the trigger. She watched him run, desperate, terrified, scrambling over rubble. A human being running for his life. She didn't fire. "You've got the shot," Salcedo said. "Dawson, you've got the shot." "They're running. They're combatants. They're running away." Salcedo looked at her. The cold calculation was gone from her eyes. Something else had taken its place. Something that looked like a line being drawn. A boundary that she would not cross, no matter what the rules of engagement said. "Let them go," she said. Salcedo opened his mouth, closed it, keyed his radio. "Alpha lead, 2 enemy combatants retreating south on foot. Overwatch is holding fire." Hale's voice came back. "Copy, let them run. We've got what we need." At 03:58, the engagement was over. Riley sat up from her prone position. Her arms were trembling. Not the violent shaking from before, a finer tremor. The kind that comes from muscles held tight for too long. Salcedo set down his scope and looked at the carnage below. Bodies scattered across the street. The crater from the suicide vest. Smoke rising from the compound. "How many?" he asked, even though he'd counted every one. 18, Riley said, plus the 2 on the rooftop. 20. 20 kills in 12 minutes. He shook his head slowly. "Dawson, yesterday was 25. Today is 20. That's 45 confirmed kills in 2 engagements, in 2 days." She didn't respond. She was staring at her hands. Steady now. The trembling had stopped. And that scared her more than the shaking had. The shaking meant she still felt it. The steadiness meant she was adapting to it, becoming something she wasn't sure she wanted to become. "Dawson," Salcedo said, softer now. "You saved them again, both teams. Without you..." "I know." "Then why do you look like that?" "Like what?" "Like you lost." She picked up her rifle, slung it across her back, stood and walked toward the stairwell without answering, because the answer was too complicated and too simple at the same time. She looked like she lost because every kill cost something, and the price was invisible, and nobody could see her paying it. They reached the ground floor at 0407. Hale was waiting outside with Alpha Team. His face was black with soot. A bandage on his left hand where debris had cut him. But he was standing. They were all standing. "Overwatch," he said. "Report." 20 enemy KIA, Riley said, including 1 suicide bomber and a 2-man machine gun team. 2 combatants withdrew south. No friendly casualties from Overwatch position. Hale stared at her. Then he did something he'd never done in 14 months of command. He put his hand on her shoulder. Not a pat, not a gesture, a grip. Solid, heavy, real. "You are the reason my men are breathing right now. Both days, both missions. You." "Just doing my job, Staff Sergeant." "Stop saying that. What you're doing is not a job. I don't know what it is, but it's not just a job." Bravo team arrived at 0415, battered but intact. Their leader, Petty Officer 2nd Class Dominguez, walked straight to Riley. He'd never met her. He'd only heard her voice on the radio. He was 6'3", 220 pounds, with a scar that ran from his ear to his jaw. He stopped in front of her and looked down at this girl who barely reached his shoulder. "You're Dawson?" "Yes." "My team was pinned in that south road. We had 3 shooters in elevated positions raining down on us. When your rifle started working the main group, those shooters pulled back to reinforce. That's the only reason we're having this conversation." "I'm glad you're okay," Dominguez shook his head. I've been doing this for 9 years. 9 years. I've served with Rangers, Delta, the best shooters in the world. And I have never heard anything like what came through that radio today. 20 kills in 12 minutes from 600 meters. She let two go, Salcedo said from behind her. They were running. She let them go. Dominguez looked at her differently then, a long, measuring look. You let them go. They were retreating. Most snipers wouldn't have made that call. I'm not most snipers. Dominguez extended his hand. She took it. He held it for a moment longer than necessary. No, you're not. The convoy back to base was quiet, not the tense silence of the ride out, a different kind of quiet. The silence of people sitting with something they couldn't explain. 45 kills in 2 days. An 18-year-old girl who shot like a machine and then refused to shoot a man in the back. A platoon that had gone from laughing at her to owing her their lives. Riley sat in her usual spot, rifle between her knees, eyes forward. But this time Vasco sat on her left, Salcedo on her right, Briggs behind her, Dominguez across from her. The vehicle was full and she was at the center of it, and for the first time since she'd arrived in Ramadi, she didn't feel alone. She reached into her pocket, touched the photograph, felt the worn edges against her fingertips. 45, Dad. They arrived back at base at 0440. Riley went straight to the armory. Same ritual. Disassemble, clean, inspect, reassemble. The rifle was an extension of her body, and she maintained it with the devotion of a surgeon sterilizing instruments. Tremblay found her there. He leaned against the doorframe the way he always did, arms crossed, face unreadable. I heard, he said. I figured. 20 more. 20. And you let 2 walk away. She looked up at him. You think I shouldn't have? I think it's the most important thing you've done since you got here. She didn't understand. He could see it in her face. Anyone can learn to shoot, Tremblay said. Killing is a skill. It can be taught, practiced, perfected. But knowing when not to kill, that's not a skill. That's character. And you can't teach it. You either have it or you don't. Salcedo thought I should have taken the shots. Salcedo has been in combat for 3 years, and he still thinks winning means eliminating every target. You've been in combat for 2 days, and you already understand that winning means knowing which targets matter. He paused. Your father would be proud of that. Riley's hand stopped moving over the rifle. She sat very still. Her throat worked. Her eyes burned. But she didn't cry. She had cried once on that rooftop, through 9 minutes of shaking, and she had decided that was the last time. Not because crying was weak, because if she started again, she wasn't sure she could stop. Chief, she said. Yeah? What happens when the killing gets easy? Tremblay was quiet for a long time. The question hung in the air between them like smoke. He'd asked himself the same question years ago. He'd never gotten a good answer. You make sure you've got people around you who remind you it shouldn't be. People like you? People like all of us. That's what a platoon is, Dawson. It's not a fighting unit. It's a family. A broken, dysfunctional, heavily armed family, but a family. And families keep each other human. She finished cleaning her rifle, set it down, looked at Tremblay with eyes that held too much for 18 years. The colonel is coming back, she said, with cameras. I know. I won't do it. That's your call. He'll make it in order. Then you'll have a decision to make, and whatever you decide, this platoon will back you. He left. Riley sat alone in the armory with a clean rifle and a dirty conscience, and the growing understanding that the enemy wasn't just outside the wire. The enemy was the system that would use her kills as propaganda, and her age as a headline, and her gender as a story, and that would chew her up and spit her out the moment she stopped being useful. At 0600, she walked to the communications room. She picked up the satellite phone. She dialed a number she knew by heart. It rang 4 times. Hello? A woman's voice, thick with sleep. laced with fear. Because when your daughter is deployed to a combat zone, every phone call could be the one that ends your world. Mom! Riley! Oh God, Riley, are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm okay, Mom, I'm fine. They called me. Someone from the military called me yesterday. They said you were in a combat situation. They said, Riley, they said you... I know what they said. Is it true? Riley closed her eyes. Through the phone, she could hear her mother's breathing. Fast, ragged. The same breathing Riley remembered from the day the officers came to the door. The day the world split in two. It's true, Mom. Silence. Not the military silence of men preparing for combat. The silence of a mother absorbing something she can't process. How many? Her mother asked. The question came out like it hurt. 45. A sound came through the phone that Riley had only heard once before in her life. The sound her mother made the day they told her Thomas Dawson was dead. A sound that wasn't a scream and wasn't a cry. Something between the two. Something that came from a place deeper than either. Mom! Mom, listen to me. I'm okay. I saved people. I saved lives. You're 18 years old. I know. You're supposed to be in college. You're supposed to be going to parties and worrying about exams and falling in love with the wrong person. You're not supposed to be... Her mother's voice broke completely. You're not supposed to be him. The words hit Riley like a bullet, clean through. No armor in the world could have stopped it. I'm not him, Mom. You're exactly him. You sound like him. You talk like him. And now you're doing what he did, in the same place he did it. And I can't... Riley, I can't bury another one. I can't. It will kill me. Riley gripped the phone so hard the plastic creaked. She wanted to promise. She wanted to say the words her mother needed to hear. I'll come home. I'll be safe. Nothing will happen to me. But she'd made a promise to her dead father, and she'd made a promise to her platoon, and she couldn't make a promise to her mother that might turn those other promises into lies. I love you, Mom, she said. I have to go. Riley, I love you. She hung up. She set the phone down. She pressed both hands flat on the table, and she breathed. In, out, in, out, until the shaking in her chest stopped, and the burning in her eyes cooled, and the girl who'd called her mother disappeared, and the soldier who protected a platoon came back. She stood up, walked out of the communications room, and ran straight into Hale. He was standing in the hallway. He'd heard everything, not because he was eavesdropping, because the walls were thin, and sound carries, and some things aren't meant to be private even when you want them to be. He didn't say anything about the call. Instead, he said, Intelligence just came in. The bomb maker wasn't in the compound because he's moved to a new location, 2 kilometers east, in a hospital. Riley looked up at him. A hospital. He's using patients as human shields. He's manufacturing devices in the basement, and he's got a network of fighters embedded in the surrounding neighborhood. When? Command is planning the operation now. It's complex, civilian-dense environment. No room for error. Hale paused. They're requesting you specifically. Riley stood very still. A hospital. Civilians. Human shields. The margin between a righteous kill and a war crime measured in inches, in centimeters, in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Tell them I'll be ready, she said. Hale nodded. He turned to go, then stopped. Dawson, the call you just made, that took more courage than anything I've seen you do with a rifle. She didn't answer. She walked past him, down the hall, toward the armory, toward the rifle, toward the only thing in her life that didn't ask questions, didn't judge, didn't cry on the other end of a phone line. She had 45 kills, a broken mother, a dead father's dream, and a mission that would test every limit she had. And the bomb maker was waiting. The briefing for the hospital operation happened at 1400. Different room this time. Smaller, only 8 people. Hale, Tremblay, Vasco, Salcedo, Dominguez, Riley, and two men Riley had never seen before. They wore no rank insignia, no name tapes, no unit patches. Their fatigues were clean in a way that nobody's fatigues were clean in Ramadi. CIA. Riley knew it before Hale introduced them. "This is Mr. Wallace and Mr. Chen," Hale said. "No first names, no ranks, just misters. They'll be briefing us on the target." Wallace stepped forward, mid-40s, gray at the temples, eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and decided none of it mattered. "The target is Karim al-Rashidi, known as the engineer. He's responsible for the design and manufacture of over 60% of the IEDs deployed against coalition forces in the Al-Anbar province in the last 18 months. Conservative estimate, his devices have killed 31 American soldiers and wounded over 100 more." Riley's jaw tightened. 31. That was 31 letters, 31 flags folded into triangles. 31 families broken the way hers had been broken. Al-Rashidi relocated to the Al-Noor Medical Center 48 hours ago, Wallace continued. He's operating a bomb-making facility in the basement. The hospital has approximately 200 patients and 60 staff members. Al-Rashidi has positioned armed fighters throughout the building, disguised as patients and orderlies. Our intelligence indicates at least 12 combatants embedded inside.
Vasco leaned forward.
Armed fighters inside a hospital full of civilians. Wonderful. "It gets better," Chen said, speaking for the first time. His voice was flat and cold. "Al-Rashidi has rigged the basement with enough explosives to level the entire building. If he believes he's about to be captured, he'll detonate. 200 patients, 60 staff, gone." The room went silent. Riley looked at the satellite photograph pinned to the wall. A building full of sick people, and a man in the basement who would kill them all to avoid capture. "Rules of engagement," Hale said. "What are we working with?" Wallace glanced at Chen. Something passed between them. "Restrictive. No air support. No heavy weapons. Precision strikes only. 0 civilian casualties." 0, Dominguez repeated. "In a building with 200 civilians and 12 embedded fighters who look exactly like patients." "That's correct." "That's impossible." "That's the mission, Petty Officer." Hale turned to Riley. "Dawson, the overwatch position for this operation is building Karim, 400 meters east of the hospital. You'll have line of sight on the main entrance, the north wing, and the rooftop. Your job is to identify and eliminate any external threats while the ground team enters the building." "What about the fighters inside?" Riley asked. "That's our problem," Hale said. "You handle outside, we handle inside."
"And Al-Rashidi?"
Wallace answered. "Al-Rashidi must be taken alive. He has intelligence value that cannot be overstated. The location of 3 bomb factories, supply chain routes, names of financiers. If he dies, that intelligence dies with him." "And if he reaches the detonator?" Riley asked. The room went quiet again. Wallace looked at her, really looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. "If Al-Rashidi is about to detonate, you are authorized to take the kill shot, but only as an absolute last resort. The window between his hand reaching for the detonator and the building exploding will be approximately 2 seconds. 2 seconds, Riley said. "Can you make that shot?" "Through a basement window at 400 meters at a moving target in under 2 seconds? Yes." Riley looked at Hale. He looked back at her with something she hadn't seen in his eyes before. Not confidence, not doubt, fear. Marcus Hale, who had survived 14 months in the deadliest city in Iraq, was afraid. Not for himself, for her, for what this mission was asking her to become. "I can make the shot," Riley said. "You're sure?" "If I can see him, he's dead. That's the only guarantee I can give you." Wallace nodded. "Good enough. Operation kicks off at 0200 tomorrow. Get some rest." Nobody got rest. Nobody even tried. At 17:30, Riley was in the armory when Salcedo walked in. He sat down across from her without speaking, watched her clean the rifle, watched her hands move with the same mechanical precision she always had. But something was different. Her movements were slower, deliberate, like she was memorizing each piece. "You're scared," Salcedo said. "I'm always scared." "No, you're not. I've watched you shoot. Fear doesn't exist in your body when you're behind that scope. But right now, sitting here, you're scared." Riley set down the barrel she'd been polishing. "A hospital, Salcedo. 200 patients. Sick people. Children, probably. And I'm supposed to thread a needle at 400 meters with a 2-second window while a man decides whether to blow them all to pieces. You've made harder shots. I've never made a shot where missing means 200 innocent people die." Salcedo was quiet for a moment. "Is that what's eating you? The shot?" "The shot I can make. What I can't do is be in two places at once. If the fighters inside the hospital start killing patients while the ground team is breaching, I can't help. I'm stuck on a rooftop 400 meters away, watching through a scope. That's Hale's problem, not yours. Those are my people going inside, Salcedo. Hale, Vasco, Tremblay. If something goes wrong in there, I have to sit and watch them die. Welcome to being a sniper. You watch, that's the job. Sometimes you watch and you can do something about it. Sometimes you watch and you can't. And you have to live with both." She looked at him. This man who doubted her 3 days ago, who'd resented her, who'd questioned why he was spotting for a teenager. Now he was sitting across from her, talking to her like a partner, like an equal, like someone he trusted. "When did you stop hating me?" she asked. Salcedo almost smiled. "About 4 seconds into the first engagement, when you dropped that RPG team and I realized I was spotting for the best shooter I'd ever seen." He paused. "I didn't hate you, Dawson. I was afraid. There's a difference." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that you'd be bad at this and someone would die because of it. Turns out I should have been afraid you'd be too good at it, because the better you are, the more they're going to use you. And the more they use you, the more you pay." At 2100, Hale called a team meeting. Not in the briefing room. In the rec area. Informal. Personal. The 8 operators who'd be going into the hospital sat in a circle. No map, no satellite photos, just people. "I'm not going to lie to you," Hale said. "This is the most dangerous mission we've undertaken. We are entering a building full of civilians with embedded combatants who are using those civilians as shields. One wrong shot, one wrong move, 1 second of hesitation, and people die. Maybe a lot of people." Nobody spoke. "I need to know right now, every one of you, are you in? Because once we step off, there's no backing out, no second thoughts, no hesitation." Vasco spoke first. "In." Tremblay. "In." Dominguez. "In." Salcedo. "In." Briggs, Doyle, Fuentes. "In. Hale looked at Riley. She met his eyes. "You already know my answer." "I need to hear it." "In." Hale nodded. "Then let me tell you something I've never told any unit before an operation. I love every one of you. I don't say that because it's sentimental. I say it because when we go into that building tomorrow, I need you to fight for the person next to you. Not for the flag, not for the mission, not for some abstract idea of duty. For each other. Because that's what keeps you alive. That's what brings you home." Riley felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. Crack. Like ice on a lake in spring. Something warm underneath pushing through. She joined this platoon 3 days ago as a stranger. A kid. A joke. Now she was sitting in a circle with 7 people who would die for her, and she would die for every one of them. And that was the most terrifying thing she'd ever felt. More terrifying than combat. More terrifying than killing. Because loving people in a war zone means giving the war something to take from you. At 2300, she went to the roof. Her spot. the place she came to when the walls closed in. She sat on the edge, legs dangling, the photograph in her hands.
Dad, she whispered, tomorrow's going to be bad. I can feel it.
The same way you said you could feel it before Kandahar. That buzzing in your chest, that weight behind your eyes. She turned the photograph over. On the back, in her father's handwriting, were 4 words he'd written to her mother years ago. Words that Riley had memorized the way some people memorize prayers. Come back to me. She pressed the photograph to her lips, tucked it into her pocket, zipped it shut. At 01:30, the platoon assembled. Gear check, radio check, weapons check. Riley slung her rifle and fell into formation beside Salcedo. He gave her a nod. She returned it. No words needed. At 01:55, the convoy departed. 2 vehicles, 8 operators, 1 girl with 45 confirmed kills, and a 2-second window to save 200 lives. They reached the staging point at 01:48. Riley and Salcedo broke off toward Building Kareem, 400 meters east. 12-story office building, abandoned. They climbed in silence. Riley was in position by 01:56, prone on the roof, bipod deployed, scope pressed to her eye. The hospital filled her field of vision. Main entrance, north wing, rooftop. And there, barely visible, a small basement window at ground level on the south side. I've got the basement window, she said into her radio. Partial view. I can see movement inside, but I can't identify targets. Copy, Overwatch, Hale replied. We need positive identification on al-Rashidi before you engage. Do not fire on the basement unless you have confirmed the target. Understood. At 0200, the operation began. Alpha Team approached from the east, Bravo from the north. 2 simultaneous entries designed to overwhelm the embedded fighters before they could react. Riley watched through her scope. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat dropped. The world narrowed. Overwatch, I've got 2 armed males on the hospital rooftop, Salcedo said. 390 meters. They're watching the east approach. They'll see Alpha Team in about 30 seconds. I see them. Take them? Waiting for Alpha to get closer. If I shoot now, the sound alerts everyone inside. If you wait too long, they spot Alpha. I know the math, Salcedo. 20 seconds. Alpha Team moved along the east wall, crouched low, fast, professional. 20 meters from the entrance. The rooftop guard turned. His rifle came up. He'd seen something. Riley fired. The guard dropped. The second man spun toward the sound. Riley chambered, fired. He dropped beside the first. 2 down on the rooftop, she reported. Alpha, you're clear. Go. Alpha breached. The sound of the door being blown reached her a half-second later. Immediately, gunfire erupted inside the building. Rapid, chaotic. The embedded fighters had been waiting. Contact inside, multiple shooters, ground floor. Bravo is breaching north side now. More gunfire. Screaming. Not the screaming of soldiers, the screaming of patients, civilians, people who were sick and helpless and trapped in a building that had become a battlefield. Riley's hands tightened on the rifle. She could hear it all through the radio. Every shot, every scream, every shouted command, and she could do nothing. She was 400 meters away, watching through glass, useless. Ground floor is a mess. Hale's voice came through, panting. 3 fighters down, 2 more retreating toward the east wing. We've got civilian casualties. A nurse is hit. Crossfire. How bad? Riley asked. She's alive, moving on. Overwatch, I've got movement at the basement window, Salcedo said urgently. Someone just passed. I couldn't ID. Riley shifted to the basement window. Dark. She cranked the magnification. Shadows. Movement. 2 figures, maybe 3, but she couldn't make out faces. Couldn't confirm. Negative ID on al-Rashidi. I can't shoot. Second floor. Contact. Vasco's voice. Fighter disguised as a patient. He pulled a weapon from under the bed. Engaging. 3 shots through the radio. Then Vasco again, breathing hard. Tango down. But there are patients everywhere. They're screaming. They can't move. Some of them are connected to machines. This is a nightmare. Stay focused, Hale ordered. Room by room. Identify targets before engaging. Protect the civilians. At 0209, Tremblay's team reached the 3rd floor. 4 rooms cleared. 2 fighters eliminated. 1 had been sitting in a wheelchair, a rifle hidden under a blanket across his lap. Tremblay had spotted the barrel poking out 1 second before the man opened fire. That was close, Tremblay radioed. Too close. These guys are good. They look exactly like patients. How do you tell them apart? Briggs asked, his voice tight with fear. The patients are scared. The fighters aren't. Watch the eyes. At 0214, the operation hit its first real crisis. Dominguez's element reached the East Wing and found a locked ward. 30 patients inside. 2 fighters standing guard with rifles visible. And between them, a man sitting in a chair, calmly assembling components on a table. I've got eyes on a possible HVT, Dominguez whispered into the radio. East Wing, ground floor, locked ward. He's building something. Could be al-Rashidi. Description, Wallace's voice cut in from the command center. Male, mid-40s, beard, glasses. Thin build, working with his hands. Very calm. That matches. That's him. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. We need him alive. He's got 30 hostages in there with him and 2 armed guards. Find a way, petty officer. Dominguez keyed off the radio and looked at Fuentes beside him. Find a way, he says, like it's a math problem. It is a math problem, Fuentes whispered. 2 guards, 2 of us, simultaneous shots, 1 chance. And if we miss, he hits the detonator and the building comes down. Then we don't miss. Riley heard everything. She shifted her scope to the East Wing windows, found the locked ward. She could see shapes through the glass, but not faces. Not clearly enough. Overwatch to Dominguez. I can see the ward from here. I can't get a clear shot through the window, but I can see the door. If you breach, I'll cover your exit route. Copy, Overwatch. Dominguez and Fuentes positioned themselves on either side of the ward door. Dominguez held up 3 fingers. 2. 1. They kicked the door in simultaneously. 2 shots, suppressed, precise, almost silent. Both guards dropped. Al-Rashidi looked up from his work. His hand moved, not toward a weapon, toward his pocket, toward something small and rectangular. The detonator. He's reaching, Dominguez shouted. He's going for the... Fuentes lunged, crossed 4 meters in less than a second. His body slammed into al-Rashidi's chair, and both men went to the floor. The detonator skittered across the tile. Fuentes pinned al-Rashidi's arms. Dominguez was on them in the next heartbeat, securing the hands, snapping zip ties on the wrists. Al-Rashidi screamed something in Arabic, his face twisted with rage. He thrashed and kicked and spat, but Fuentes held him down with the weight of a man who'd tackled insurgents before, and who wasn't letting go until the world ended, or someone told him to. HVT is secured, Dominguez yelled into the radio. Al-Rashidi is in custody. Detonator recovered. Riley exhaled. Every muscle in her body released at once. She hadn't realized how tense she'd been, how tightly she'd been wound. Her finger had been on the trigger the entire time, waiting for the 2-second window, waiting to make the impossible shot through a basement window at 400 meters. She hadn't needed to take it, and the relief was so overwhelming that for a moment she couldn't see. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, cleared it, pressed her eye back to the scope. Because it wasn't over. All units be advised, Hale's voice came through. We have al-Rashidi in custody, but we're still clearing the building. Remaining fighters may try to escape or retaliate. Overwatch, I need you sharp. I'm here, Riley said, and she meant it, every part of her. At 0221, 2 fighters burst from the north entrance of the hospital, running, armed. One of them was dragging a woman by the arm, a nurse, her scrubs splattered with blood, her mouth open in a scream that Riley could see but couldn't hear. "Contact north exit," Salcedo called.
2 fighters.
One has a hostage. Riley found them in her scope. The first fighter was in the open, clear shot, 380 meters. She could take him in her sleep. But the second fighter held the nurse in front of his body like a shield. Only his head and one shoulder were visible. A 6-inch target at nearly 400 meters. If she missed, if the bullet deviated by even a fraction, the nurse would die. "I've got the first target clean," Riley said. "The second is using the hostage." "Can you make the shot?" Hale asked. "It's tight." "How tight?" 6 inches of viable target. At this range, with the wind, the margin of error is less than an inch. "Dawson, can you make the shot? Yes or no?" She breathed, found the pocket of calm inside herself, the place where the math lived, where the doubt couldn't reach. "Yes. Take them both, simultaneous if possible." "That's not possible, sequential, half-second gap." "Do it," Riley settled. The first target was easy. She placed the crosshair center mass. The second target required her to shift 4 inches on the scope and fire before the man could react to the first shot. Half a second, the time it takes to blink. She fired. The first fighter fell. She shifted. The second fighter's eyes went wide. His grip on the nurse loosened for a fraction of a second. Just enough. Riley saw 6 inches of forehead above the nurse's shoulder. She fired. The fighter's head snapped back. He crumpled. The nurse stumbled forward, fell to her knees, covered her face with both hands. "Both down," Salcedo confirmed. "Hostage is alive. Hostage is safe." On the radio, someone whispered, "How the hell did she make that shot?" Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Not Salcedo, who'd watched it happen through his scope. Not Hale, who'd authorized it from inside the building. Not Riley, who'd pulled the trigger on a shot that should have been impossible, and who was now staring through her scope at a nurse kneeling in the dirt. Alive because of an inch. 1 single inch. At 0237, the hospital was fully cleared. 8 enemy fighters eliminated, 4 in custody, including al-Rashidi. 212 patients accounted for, 14 injured in the crossfire. 1 dead, an elderly man on the 4th floor who'd gone into cardiac arrest during the gunfire. 1, not 200, not 60. 1. And even that one sat in Riley's chest like a stone, because somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered if the shock from the gunfire had killed him, and if the gunfire existed because she existed, and if she'd somehow contributed to a death she was supposed to prevent. She knew the thought was irrational. She knew it. But knowing and feeling are different countries, and Riley Dawson lived in both of them at the same time. The platoon extracted at 0255. Hale stepped forward. 47 kills. Hale stepped forward. 47 kills in 3 engagements over 3 days. 2 hostage rescues. 1 high-value target captured. 0 friendly KIA. He paused. The words that came next cost him something. She could see it in the way his throat moved. "You are the most effective combat operator I have ever served with, and I have served with the best this military has to offer." Riley stood very still. 47 kills, 3 days, 18 years old. The numbers didn't feel real. They felt like they belonged to someone else. Someone she was becoming but hadn't fully become yet. Someone she wasn't sure she wanted to meet. "Staff Sergeant," she said, "request permission to make a phone call." Hale nodded. "Granted." She walked toward the communications room. Her legs felt heavy, not from exhaustion, from gravity. The weight of 47 lives she'd taken pressing down on her with every step. She picked up the satellite phone, dialed. 3 rings. "Hello? Mom, it's me." "Riley, oh, thank God, are you?" "I'm okay. Everyone's okay. We got him, the bomb maker, the one who's been killing our soldiers. We got him. Her mother was crying. Riley could hear it, the quiet kind of crying, the kind that happens when relief and terror hit at the same time. Mom,
I need to tell you something. What?
you were right about me being like him. I am like him. I can't change that. I don't want to change it. But I need you to know something he never got to tell you. What's that, baby? Riley closed her eyes. The photograph pressed against her heart through the fabric of her fatigues. Her father's face, his handwriting on the back. Come back to me. I'm coming home, she said. I don't know when, but I'm coming home.
And I need you to be there when I do.
I'll be there. I'll always be there. I know, Mom. I know. She hung up, set the phone down gently, stood in the silence of the communications room, and let the tears come. Not the violent shaking from the first day, not the burning eyes from the second, just tears. Quiet, clean, human tears that ran down her face and fell onto the collar of her uniform and meant nothing and everything all at the same time. She wiped her face,
Straightened her shoulders,
walked out. Tremblay was in the hallway. He didn't comment on her eyes. He just handed her a bottle of water and said, Colonel Whitmore called. He's coming tomorrow. With the cameras. Riley took the water, drank half of it in one pull. Let him come, she said, and there was something in her voice that hadn't been there before. Not defiance, not surrender, authority. The quiet, unshakable authority of a person who had looked death in the face 3 times in 3 days and decided that a colonel with a camera was not going to be the thing that broke her. She walked to the armory, sat down, pulled out the rifle, began the ritual, bolt, scope, trigger, barrel. Outside, the sun was coming up over Ramadi. Inside, an 18-year-old girl cleaned her weapon and waited for whatever was coming next, because she had learned something in 3 days that most people never learn in a lifetime. The war doesn't end when the shooting stops. It just moves inside. And the fight to survive that war, the one that lives in your head, in your chest, in the space behind your eyes where the faces of the dead gather and wait, that fight was just beginning. Colonel Whitmore arrived at 0900 with 3 vehicles, a photographer, a videographer, a public affairs officer named Captain Melissa Grant, and the kind of energy that made everyone on base tense up like a wire about to snap. Riley was in the armory. Of course she was. Hale found her there, rifle in pieces on the table, hands moving through the ritual that had become her anchor. He's here, Hale said. I know, I heard the convoy. He brought cameras and a PAO. This isn't a casual visit, Dawson. He's building a package. Riley set down the barrel. What kind of package? The kind that goes to Washington, the kind that ends up on news desks, the kind that turns a soldier into a symbol. I'm not a symbol. You are to him. 47 confirmed kills, 18 years old, female, in 3 days. Do you understand what that story is worth to a military that's losing public support for this war? Riley looked at Hale. His face was tight, not angry, worried. The face of a man who'd been in the system long enough to know how the system worked and who was watching it close around someone he cared about. What do you want me to do? She asked. I want you to do whatever you need to do, but I want you to understand what's at stake. If you cooperate, they'll promote you, decorate you, put you on a pedestal, and then they'll use you until you're empty, and when you break, they'll find someone else. And if I refuse, then you make a colonel look bad, and colonels have long memories and short tempers. Riley reassembled the rifle. Click, 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 every piece falling into place. Send him in, she said. Whitmore entered the armory like he owned it. Captain Grant flanked him with a tablet and a recorder. The photographer hovered near the door. Corporal Dawson. Whitmore's smile was wide and practiced. Congratulations are in order. 47 confirmed kills, a captured high-value target. You've accomplished more in 72 hours than most soldiers accomplish in an entire career. Thank you, sir. I've recommended you for the Silver Star. It's being fast-tracked through command. You'll be the youngest female recipient in the history of this conflict." Riley said nothing. Whitmore waited. When the gratitude he expected didn't come, his smile dimmed by exactly 1 degree. "I'd like to do that interview now, Corporal. What do you want me to say?" "The truth, your story, how a young woman from—" "Where are you from?" "Fayetteville, North Carolina. How a young woman from Fayetteville became the most effective sniper in this theater of operations. The American people deserve to know." Riley looked at Captain Grant. The recorder was already on. The photographer had raised his camera. Everything about this moment was designed to make her say yes. The authority, the praise, the implication that refusing would be unpatriotic. "Sir, permission to speak freely." "Of course." "The American people deserve to know about the 31 soldiers that al-Rashidi killed with his bombs. They deserve to know about Henderson, who died at a checkpoint 6 weeks ago. They deserve to know about Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale, who has written 6 letters to 6 families and who led his platoon through 3 operations without losing a single man. They deserve to know about Chief Petty Officer Tremblay, who held this unit together when it was falling apart. About Petty Officer Vasco, who was brave enough to apologize when he was wrong. About Salcedo, who called every target and never flinched. About Dominguez and Fuentes, who tackled a bomb maker to the ground with a detonator in his hand. She paused. The room was silent. "Those are the stories the American people deserve, not mine. I pulled a trigger. That's all I did." The courage was theirs. Whitmore's jaw tightened. His smile was gone now, replaced by something cold and bureaucratic. "That's a very noble sentiment, Corporal, but I'm not asking you to choose which story gets told. I'm telling you that your story is the one command wants. Then command can write it without me." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Captain Grant stopped typing. The photographer lowered his camera. Even the air seemed to hold still. Whitmore stepped closer. His voice dropped to a register that wasn't meant for the recorder. "Let me be very clear, Corporal. You are 18 years old. You are 3 days into your first deployment. You do not get to tell a colonel what command can and cannot do. I am offering you an opportunity that soldiers twice your age would kill for. A Silver Star, national recognition, a career trajectory that most people can only dream of. All I'm asking for is 30 minutes of your time and your cooperation." Riley met his eyes, held them. "And all I'm asking for is to be left alone to do my job, sir. Your job is whatever the United States military tells you it is. My job is to protect the men and women in this platoon. Everything else is noise." Whitmore stared at her for a long, dangerous moment. Then he turned to Hale, who'd been standing in the corner watching. "Staff Sergeant, control your soldier." Hale straightened. "With all due respect, sir, Corporal Dawson is within her rights to decline a voluntary media interview." "I didn't ask about her rights. I gave you an order 3 days ago." "You gave me 3 days, sir. It's been 3 days. She's given her answer." Whitmore looked between them, the colonel and the staff sergeant, the man with the stars and the man with the scars, and the 18-year-old girl sitting between them with a rifle on the table and a dead man's photograph in her pocket. "This isn't over," Whitmore said. He turned and walked out. Captain Grant followed. The photographer scurried behind them like a shadow. When they were gone, Hale let out a breath he'd been holding since Whitmore entered the room. "You just told a colonel to go to hell. Twice." "I told him the truth. In the military, those are often the same thing." Riley looked down at her rifle. "What's he going to do?" "Honestly, I don't know. He could bury you, reassign you to a desk, block the Silver Star. Or he could wait until the story gets out on its own, which it will, because 47 kills in 3 days doesn't stay quiet. And when it does get out, he'll take credit for it, whether you cooperate or not. Let him. You don't care? I care about this platoon. I care about the next mission. I care about going home alive. Everything else is someone else's problem. Hale shook his head slowly. You know what scares me about you, Dawson? What? You're 18 years old, and you've already figured out what took me 20 years to learn. At 1100, the intel report came in that changed everything. Al-Rashidi had talked. Under interrogation, he'd given up the location of his primary bomb factory, a warehouse complex 4 kilometers northwest. But he'd also revealed something else, something that turned Riley's blood to ice. The ambush in Al-Jarrah, the first mission, the one where Riley had killed 25 fighters, hadn't been a coincidence. It had been specifically designed to test the platoon's sniper capability. Al-Rashidi had known a new sniper was being assigned. He'd known the overwatch position. He'd known the time. Someone had leaked the information. Someone inside the coalition. Hale delivered the news to the platoon at 11:30. The reaction was volcanic. A leak? Vasco slammed his fist against the wall. Someone told them we were coming? Someone told them about Dawson? That's what Al-Rashidi claims, Hale said. CIA is investigating. Investigating. Dominguez's voice was acid. While we were walking into ambush after ambush, someone was feeding them our plans, and the CIA is investigating. There's more, Hale said. He looked at Riley. Al-Rashidi says the leak includes your position for the hospital operation. They knew exactly where Building Kareem was. They knew exactly when we were breaching. Riley felt the ground shift beneath her. The hospital, the embedded fighters, the locked ward, the detonator, all of it choreographed, not just by Al-Rashidi, but by someone who had access to coalition operational plans. The fighters on the hospital rooftop, she said slowly, they weren't watching for Alpha Team. They were watching for me. They knew where I was. That's our assessment, Hale said. Then why didn't they shoot me? Because Al-Rashidi wanted you alive. The same way Whitmore wants you as a propaganda tool, Al-Rashidi wanted you as a prisoner. An 18-year-old female American sniper. Can you imagine what that's worth to an insurgent media operation? The room went cold. They weren't trying to kill me, Riley said. They were trying to capture me. Every engagement, all 3 of them, the ambush in Al-Jarrah was designed to test your skills and identify your position. The second mission, the compound, the fighters who went for the tall building weren't trying to shoot you. They were trying to get close enough to take you. And the hospital, the rooftop guards were a containment team, not a kill team. Riley sat down. Her legs gave out. Not from fear, from the realization that every moment she'd spent behind her rifle, every shot she'd taken, every life she'd saved, all of it had been happening inside a trap designed specifically for her. She'd been the target, not the shooter, the target. Who's the leak? Salcedo demanded. We don't know yet. How do we not know? How many people had access to all 3 operational plans? Fewer than 20. CIA is running the list. Tremblay spoke for the first time. Until the leak is identified, Dawson is compromised. Every future operation she's assigned to is potentially blown before it starts. I know, Hale said. So what do we do? Riley asked. Hale looked at her. The answer was in his eyes before he said it. Command wants to pull you out, send you to a secure facility until the investigation is complete. No. Dawson, no. If I leave, whoever leaked this information wins. They wanted me off this battlefield. They wanted me neutralized. And if I run, that's exactly what they get. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about your safety. My safety? Riley stood up. Her voice rose for the first time since she'd arrived. My safety? What about their safety? She pointed at every person in the room. Vasco, Tremblay, Salcedo, Briggs, Dominguez, Fuentes, Doyle, Nakamura. Who protects them if I leave? Who sits on that rooftop and watches their backs? Another sniper. There is no other sniper like me. You said it yourself. I am the most effective combat operator you've ever served with. And you want to pull me because someone out there is afraid of what I can do? That's exactly why I need to stay. The room was quiet. Riley's breathing was heavy. Her fists were clenched at her sides. She looked around at the faces of the people she'd bled for and killed for and stayed awake for. 3 days. It had only been 3 days. But 3 days in Ramadi was a lifetime. And these people were her family now, broken and armed and beautiful, and she would not leave them. Hale rubbed his face with both hands. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. I'll talk to command. No promises. Talk fast. At 1400, Wallace called from the CIA station. The leak had been identified. An interpreter attached to the coalition planning cell, a man named Saeed Barakat, who had been passing operational details to al-Rashidi's network for 7 months. He'd been arrested 30 minutes ago. 7 months, Hale said when he got off the phone. 7 months he sat in our briefing rooms and listened to our plans and sent them to a man who was building bombs to kill us. Is Dawson safe now? Tremblay asked. The leak is plugged, but the damage is done. Al-Rashidi's network knows about her. Her name, her skills, her methods. Even with Barakat in custody, that information is out there. Riley heard this and felt something she hadn't felt since the day the officers came to her mother's door. Vulnerability. Not the physical kind. She'd accepted that the moment she stepped off the helicopter. Something deeper. The feeling of being known by people who wanted to destroy you. Of being seen by eyes that wished you dead. She went to the roof that night, her spot, the last time, she suspected, because tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that, something would change. The investigation, Whitmore's politics, command's calculations, something would shift, and she would be moved, reassigned, redeployed to a place where her name wasn't known, and her kills weren't counted, and her face wasn't a target. But tonight, she was here, and the sky above Ramadi was clear for the first time in days. Footsteps behind her. Not one set, multiple. She turned. Hale, Tremblay, Vasco, Salcedo, Dominguez, Briggs, Fuentes, Doyle, Nakamura, the entire platoon, every one of them. They climbed onto the roof and sat down around her. Not in formation, not at attention, just around her, like a wall, like a family. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then Vasco said, 3 days. 3 days, Tremblay echoed. You've been here 3 days, and you've saved every person on this roof at least once. Some of us twice. Riley looked at them. These men who had laughed at her, who had doubted her, who had called her kid and questioned her presence and resented her existence. These men who now sat around her on a rooftop in the most dangerous city in the world and who would fight and die for her the way she had fought and nearly died for them. I didn't do it alone, she said. Nobody does anything alone, Hale said. That's the point. What happens now? Briggs asked. Now? Hale looked at Riley. Command approved my request. Dawson stays with the platoon indefinitely. The roof erupted. Not cheering, something quieter. Relief. Backslaps. Nods. Salcedo closed his eyes and exhaled. Tremblay put his hand on Riley's shoulder and squeezed. Vasco, who 3 days ago had questioned whether she belonged in a war zone, looked at her and said 2 words that meant more than any silver star ever could. Welcome home. Riley Dawson, 18 years old, 47 confirmed kills, survivor of 3 ambushes, and 1 colonel and a traitor in her own grief, looked at the people around her and felt something she hadn't felt since her father died. She belonged. Not because of what she could do with a rifle, not because of the number on her kill count, but because she had bled with these people and cried with these people and held herself together when everything inside her was falling apart, and they had done the same, and that shared brokenness was the strongest bond any of them had ever known. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph. Her father's face, his handwriting on the back. "Come back to me." "I will, Dad," she whispered, "but not yet. I'm not done yet." Hale heard her. He didn't ask who she was talking to. He already knew. At 0600 the next morning, the Silver Star recommendation came through. Approved. Whitmore had signed off on it despite everything. Maybe because of everything. Because a colonel who blocks a medal for the most decorated sniper in the theater looks worse than a colonel who was told no by a teenager. Politics, even heroism, has a price tag. Hale delivered the news. Riley listened, nodded. "How do you feel?" he asked. "The same." "The same as what?" "The same as before. A medal doesn't change what I did. It doesn't bring back the people I killed. It doesn't fix my mom's nightmares. It doesn't make my dad alive. It's metal and ribbon, that's all." Some people would disagree. Some people haven't killed 47 human beings in 3 days. Hale had no answer for that, because she was right. A medal is a symbol, and symbols are for the people who watch from a distance. For the people up close, the ones with blood on their hands and faces in their scopes, and the sound of screaming in their ears. A medal is just another thing to carry. The platoon deployed on 4 more missions over the following 6 weeks. Riley was on overwatch for every one. Her kill count climbed. 60, 70, 83. Each number a life taken and a life saved. Each number a weight added to the invisible ledger she carried inside her chest. Salcedo spotted for her on every mission. They became something more than partners, something that didn't have a word in English. 2 people connected by the terrible intimacy of watching through a scope as someone takes their last breath. Tremblay watched over her the way he always had, quietly, steadily. The father she'd lost, reincarnated in a graying chief petty officer who handed her bottles of water and asked real questions and never once treated her like a child or a weapon or a story. Vasco became her fiercest defender. The man who'd laughed at her on day 1 now shut down anyone who questioned her with a single look. He never apologized again. He didn't need to. Every day he showed up and treated her like a soldier was an apology, and it was enough. Hale wrote a letter, not to command, not to Whitmore, to Riley's mother. He wrote it by hand, on paper, the way he wrote his letters to the families of the dead. But this letter was different. This letter was for a mother whose child was alive. He wrote, "Mrs. Dawson, your daughter is the bravest person I have ever known. Not because she can shoot, because she can carry the weight of what shooting costs and still choose to protect the people around her. You raised someone extraordinary, and I promise you, I will bring her home." He sealed the letter, addressed it, put it in the outgoing mail, and then he went to the briefing room and planned the next mission, because the war didn't stop for letters or medals or promises, and there were still red circles on the map that needed black X's through them. On the 89th day of her deployment, Riley Dawson sat on the roof of the barracks for the last time. Her rotation was ending. A transport was coming in the morning. She was going home. Her rifle was clean. Her bag was packed. The photograph was in her pocket, where it had been every day since she arrived. Salcedo found her up there. He sat down beside her without asking. The way Tremblay had on the first night, the way the whole platoon had the night they learned about the leak. The roof had become their place. The place where the walls came down and the ranks didn't matter and the truth could breathe. 83, Salcedo said. I stopped counting at 60. I didn't. Someone had to. I wish you hadn't. Yeah, me too. They sat in silence. What are you going to do when you get back? He asked. I don't know. Sleep? Eat food that doesn't come from a package. Try to figure out who I am when I'm not looking through a scope. That's the hard part. The shooting is easy. The living after. That's what breaks people. Are you broken, Salcedo? He thought about it. Cracked, not broken. There's a difference. What's the difference? Cracked things still hold together.
Broken things don't.
She nodded. Then I'm cracked too. Good, we match. She almost laughed. The closest she'd come in 89 days. The morning came fast. The platoon lined up on the tarmac, not because they were ordered to, because they chose to. 23 operators standing in the dust to say goodbye to the girl who'd changed everything. Riley walked the line, shook every hand, looked into every face. Briggs, who'd been the first to ask about her qualification score.
Nakamura,
Who'd sat beside her at the briefing on the second day. Doyle and Fuentes, who'd tackled a bomb maker to the floor. Dominguez, who'd called her the best shooter he'd ever seen. Vasco, who'd given her the only 2 words that ever mattered. Welcome home. Tremblay was next. He didn't shake her hand. He pulled her into a hug. Brief. Hard. The kind that says everything words can't. Stay human, he whispered. That's an order. Copy, Chief. Salcedo was last before Hale. He held out his hand. She took it. He didn't let go. You know what I'm going to miss most? He said. What? Calling targets and knowing, absolutely knowing, that every single one of them was going down. That's certainty. I've never had that with anyone else, and I probably never will. You'll find someone. No, I won't, and that's okay. Some things only happen once. He let go of her hand, stepped back, and Riley saw his eyes, and they were wet, and she looked away because if she didn't, she would cry, and she had made a promise to herself about that. Hale was last. He stood at the end of the line, ramrod straight, 14 months of command etched into every line on his face, 6 letters written, 0 letters written since Riley arrived. That was her legacy, not the kills, the letters he didn't have to write. Corporal Dawson, Staff Sergeant Hale, it has been the honor of my career to serve with you. The honor was mine, Staff Sergeant. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a patch, unit insignia, his unit insignia, worn, faded, stained with the dust of Ramadi. He pressed it into her palm. You carry this, so a part of this platoon goes home with you. And so you remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, you have a family here. Always. Riley closed her fingers around the patch. She felt the threads against her skin, worn smooth by 14 months of war. I'll carry it, she said. I'll carry all of it. She turned toward the helicopter. The rotor wash was already kicking up dust. She walked through it the way she'd walked through everything in the last 89 days. Straight, steady, forward. She climbed aboard, sat down, placed her rifle case beside her. Through the open door she could see them, all of them, standing in the dust, watching her go. 23 soldiers who had laughed at her and doubted her and fought beside her and loved her. 23 people she would carry inside her chest for the rest of her life, right next to the photograph and the patch and the 83 faces she saw when she closed her eyes. The helicopter lifted. Ramadi shrank beneath her. The buildings became blocks. The streets became lines. The people became dots. And then it was gone, swallowed by distance and dust and the slow mercy of altitude. Riley Dawson reached into her pocket, pulled out the photograph, her father's face, his smile, his handwriting. Come back to me. I'm coming, Dad, she said. I'm coming home. She pressed the photograph to her chest, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 89 days, Riley Dawson slept. She was 18 years old. She had 83 confirmed kills, a silver star, a unit patch pressed against her heart, and a platoon that would never forget her name. She had carried her father's war and her mother's fear and her own impossible burden across 3 months of combat, and she had not broken. She had cracked. But cracked things still hold together. That's what Salcedo said. And Salcedo was never wrong about the things that mattered. The helicopter flew east toward the sunrise. Below, the war continued. Above, a girl who had become a legend, flew toward a life she would have to rebuild from scratch. And somewhere in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a mother stood on a porch with her hand over her mouth and tears streaming down her face, because the car pulling into the driveway carried the only person in the world she had left. Riley Dawson stepped out, dropped her bag, crossed the yard, and fell into her mother's arms. She was home. She was alive. She was 18 years old, and she would never be the same.